Hello and welcome to what promises to be another exciting match in this round of the Public Sector Debate Competition 2025. I am Tomika Gunmighty, Communication Specialist here at the Transformation Implementation Unit. We are now at the quarterfinals and there are now 8 teams vying for a spot in the semi-final round. Thank you so much for joining us, for those here at Saxthorpe Avenue and those of you online on our social media platforms. It has been a riveting competition so far. Over the past few rounds, we had teams who participated and did commendably so for their organization. We said farewell to 8 teams in the previous round. If you've missed those rounds, you can always catch up on our social media pages, on our YouTube page or our Facebook page. Continuing the action this afternoon, we have with us the Universal Service Fund and the Judiciary of Jamaica. And they will be debating the MOOT, yes, give them a round of applause, quarterfinalists. They will be debating the MOOT. Be it resolved that the benefits of strict KPI regimes in the public sector outweigh the costs to employee creativity and innovation. Should be an exciting one. Before we begin, we ask the teams to introduce themselves, beginning with the team from the Universal Service Fund.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omar Williams, and I'll be the first speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Natasha Bennett, second speaker for the proposition.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayana Bennett, and I'll be the proposition reply speaker.
Thank you so much to the team from the Universal Service Fund. We now turn our attention to the team from the Judiciary of Jamaica as they introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaquan Beckford, and I am the first speaker for Team Opposition.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaya Bakanan Kamozi, and I am second speaker for the opposition.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanique Richards, and I am the third speaker for the opposition.
Thank you to our team from the Judiciary of Jamaica. Today's adjudicators are our partners from the Jamaica Association for Debating and Empowerment, JADE, and we now ask the judges to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Tamika. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jermaine Barrett, and I'll be the chair adjudicator for this batch. Over to you, Roshana.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roshana Jarrett, and I'll be one of your wing adjudicators for this match.
And I'm Curtis Wallace, and I'm the other wing adjudicator.
Thank you to our judges. Teams are all familiar with the rules at this point. I now turn over to the judges. All the best to both teams.
Thank you again, Tamika. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome first of all to the teams who have advanced to this quarterfinal round in the competition this year. Now, if you're just joining us, a very special welcome to you as well, and for your benefit, we'll just go through quickly the rules. So the first speaker on each team will speak for 7 minutes, the second speaker for 6 minutes, and the third speaker will speak for 5 minutes. After the first 2 speeches, that's the first proposition and first opposition speakers, we'll enter a period of cross-examination. When we get to that point, I'll provide greater details about how that will go. And then that we'll also enter another period of cross-examination after the second pair of speeches. After that second cross-examination, we will take a 1-minute pause, and then at the end of the pause, we'll resume with the reply speakers from team opposition first, followed by the proposition team's reply speaker. The first 2 speakers on each team will obtain protected times. So the first and last minute of your speech are protected from points of information. When you have spoken for the allotted amount of time, you will hear 2 dings of a bell. And then when you have spoken for the allotted time plus 15 seconds, you will hear continuous dinging of the bell, which means that you should yield the floor for the speaker after you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, debaters, are you ready? Oh, come on. Are you ready? Well, we are ready, so let's get the show on the road. At this time, I call upon the first speaker from Team USF, the proposition team. First speaker to open the debate. Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, esteemed opponents, ladies and gentlemen, today the proposition stands firmly behind the motion, be it resolved that the benefits of strict KPI regimes in the public sector outweigh the cost to employee creativity and innovation. Let us define the key terms. Strict KPI regimes refer to the performance systems with clearly defined measurable targets that are rigorously enforced. The public sector includes all government agencies, ministries, and departments. Benefits, an advantage gained from something. Costs, negative effects, creativity and innovation, simply thinking of something new and making it a reality. Our burden today is to demonstrate that the benefits of how strict KPIs outweigh the cost of employee creativity and innovation, and show how KPIs provide structure to the operations in the public sector. Mr. Speaker, today I will advance 3 arguments. 1, strict KPIs ensure accountability and transparency. Strict KPIs provide efficient use of resources, and employee creativity and innovation can be dangerous and has the potential to plant unethical values and behavior within the public sector. Mr. Speaker, our position is unapologetic. The public sector is not an experimental playground. It is a system funded by taxpayers, and every dollar must be accounted for. KPIs are not optional, they are essential. Fresh in our minds is the salary increases received by the political directorate under the revised public sector compensation structure. Members of parliament, political representatives saw salary increases surging past 200%. The response, civil society and the voting public were enraged. The consensus, implement job description for parliamentarians. By clearly defining roles and responsibilities of politicians and establishing measurable criteria to assess their performance, the aim is to ensure that elected officials work diligently to serve the best interests of their constituents. Mr. Speaker, imagine how stronger representation in Jamaica would be if we had strict KPIs for our politicians, reducing crime and violence in communities by 2%, or 95% attendance in parliament meetings. My opponents, how can creativity and innovation deliver these results? How certain are you that creativity and innovation will deliver for the people, as we are certain that strict KPIs in public sector have been proven to have greater impact for citizens' lives and their livelihoods? Strict KPI as an instrument of accountability would ensure that citizens would be able to see, assess, and measure whether their representatives are doing what they were elected to do. Creativity and innovation could never guarantee this. Strict KPIs provide clear and measurable targets that guides the monitoring of public sector resources and ensure that they are being used to achieve specific outcomes. KPIs, not at this moment. KPIs highlight inefficiencies, expose underperforming programs, and guide decision makers in the reallocation of funds, personnel, and time with greater impact. Creativity, on the other hand, is not tied to proven or tangible results, and therefore promotes waste of government resources. When performance is judged by clear outcomes, not personality, popularity, or politics, the work culture improves. Good employees are rewarded. Slackers are exposed. That, Mr. Speaker, is another proven outcome of strict KPIs. My opponents would want you to believe that having employees doing trial and error with government resources will outweigh the benefits of proven results. I don't know what is in the water that they're drinking. We are expecting these arguments from our opponents, but let us respond in advance. Let me guide my opponents on the dangers of a public sector led by employee creativity and innovation. The US Space Shuttle Challenger disaster in 1986 is a tragic example of how employees' unchecked innovation can lead to catastrophic consequences. NASA engineers and contractors push the technical boundaries where creative problem solving overshadowed strict adherence to defined safety protocols. Innovative confidence ultimately led to the explosion of the shuttle and the loss of lives of all 7 crew members. This, Mr. Speaker, is a clear example of how the benefits of strict KPIs outweigh the ultimate cost of employee creativity and innovation and could have resulted in lives being saved. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, how impactful a strict KPI such as 100% adherence to safety protocols would have been the difference between a successful launch and an explosion. Mr. Speaker, let me educate my opponents on how unethical values creep into the public sector due to employee creativity and innovation by introducing the failed robo-debt scheme in Australia. A debt collection scheme once viewed as innovative and creative regarding debt recovery failed due to insufficient ethical oversight. The results, many people experience severe mental health due to incorrectly being accused of owing money, with reports of emotional distress and even suicide, as people were harassed for years for debts that they didn't owe. The government of Australia settled $1.8 billion in class action lawsuit, including over $700 million in refund. Strict KPIs tied to compliance accuracy, data integrity, and internal review processes would have imposed the necessary checks and balance to save employees from themselves. Strict KPIs offer a future rooted in transparency, efficiency, and fairness. The claims that KPIs suppress creativity is not just exaggerated, it's irrelevant. In the public sector, results matter, delivery matters, progress must be seen and measured and sustained. My colleague will now show how strict KPIs align with national priorities, uplift service delivery, build a performance-based culture that works for the people, and ultimately informs decision-making process for the government. The proposition pauses.
We thank the first proposition speaker from USF. That's the Universal Service Fund. That's an excellent opening we heard there. And we now go to the first opposition speaker from the Judiciary of Jamaica to hear their opening salvo. Let's make that speaker welcome.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition is not here today to argue that we need a creativity and innovation-led government. We are here arguing for a balanced approach where KPI meets innovation and creativity. That is the status quo. Picture 100 feathers, then picture 10 boulders. If placed on a scale, which weighs more? In debates like these, Mr. Speaker, we must not be fooled by volume. Because even if the proposition says there are 100 benefits, we are here to show that just 10 costs to employee creativity and innovation weighs more. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, esteemed judges, pleasant afternoon. We firmly reject the MOOT. Be it resolved that the benefits of a strict KPI-based system outweigh the cost to employee innovation and creativity in the public sector. I rise as the first speaker for the opposition to expose the delicate balance in Jamaica's status quo, and that when KPIs become too rigid, they snuff out innovation and replaces it with unethical practices. My second speaker will unpack the true cost to creativity and expose how strict KPIs often sabotage their own goals. And our third speaker will seal the case and show why the opposition clearly takes this debate. Now, Mr. Speaker, allow me to fix the proposition's definition. A strict KPI is one that is rigid and inflexible. It has narrow metrics that reduce performance to numbers alone. They tie appointments, salaries, and promotions to output, ignoring complexity, context, and compassion. Mr. Speaker, my first substantive point is that the status quo in Jamaica is working. The public sector does not operate in extremes. We are not a KPI-obsessed state, nor are we a whimsical artistic commune. We operate in the tension between structure and flexibility, and this works. We have KPIs, yes, targets for school attendance, wait times in clinics, and so on. But these are tempered by space for human judgment, innovation, creativity, and professional discretion. This is the status quo, and it has led to some of Jamaica's proudest public sector successes. Take the COVID-19 vaccination campaign. It was not a rigid order to hit 65% in 12 months. It was more like an ant colony. Quiet coordination, community spirit, and tireless effort. The public health teams turned churches, schools, parking lots, and even street corners into vaccination stations. This collective energy earned us praise from the United Nations, the Pan-American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and more. Great things happen, Mr. Speaker, when KPIs guide, not grip, and allows employee innovation and creativity as a part of the strategy. Now, to be honest, we did miss the official target. But in the scramble to catch up to this target with the COVID-19 vaccinations, we saw a wave of reactionary moves which resulted in political and legal showdowns and rising public distrust. This proves that when we focus on the numbers, we lose the people. Look at HEART. They use KPIs to track program completion, but their strength lies in continuous adaptation to industry needs. New courses, new delivery models, new certification. That is not number chasing. That is creativity and innovation personified. We've seen creativity and innovation in the Jamaican judiciary. Remote court hearings, an increase in restorative justice, courtroom redesigns for efficiency, and greater involvement of the community in sentencing. These transformations were not ordered by KPIs. They were born from creativity and innovation. Mr. Speaker, this brings me to one of the public sector's most innovative leaps, digital transformation. Suddenly, we have online queues instead of physical ones, websites that actually work, and ministries sliding into our DMs, posting on our TLs with updates, making the information and service more accessible. This was possible because of the status quo, which blends structure with flexibility, accountability with creativity, and has sustained progress across our public sector. And to answer the first opposition speaker's question, how can creativity and innovation drive these results? This is so not accepted at this time. We have shown that when you mix creativity and innovation, we can progress and success is clear. And let me remind this House that every ministry, department, and agency in Jamaica has a strategic plan that demands innovation and creativity. And across the aisle, the consensus is clear. Creativity in public service isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. My second substantive point, Mr. Speaker, is that when KPIs become too strict, they do not merely suppress employee innovation and creativity, they corrupt the system. Strict KPIs turn every task into a race for speed, not direction. That is why the police reject ticket quotas. The Assistant Commissioner of Police, Gary Mackenzie, told Radio Jamaica News Online in 2025 that quotas lead to shortcuts, errors, and ethical lapses. So when numbers trump nuance, the result is not success, it is dysfunction. Imagine a world not accepted at this time, Mr. Speaker, where the teachers teach to the test or worse, manipulate internal assessments because their school KPIs are pass rates and not student potential, where nurses prioritize quantity of patients seen or treated over the quality of care provided, where public officers inflate success stories in community development programs to meet their deliverables. Mr. Speaker, this is malicious compliance that prioritizes performance optics over real-world impact. Why? Because where there is a strict KPI regime, promotions, increments, transfers are tied to those numbers. It creates an environment where public sector employees are no longer guided by service, but survival. And when the cost of consistently missing KPIs is a stalled or no career, the ethics of excellence are replaced by the ethics of survival. So, Mr. Speaker, when KPIs are too strict, they breed mediocrity wrapped in metrics. And that is the worst kind of failure, when it looks like success on paper. Mr. Speaker, as I close, what could be more ironic than debating at a competition fueled by innovation and creativity by public sector employees in favor of a system designed to suffocate it? Let me be clear. We do not oppose KPIs, but we believe in a balanced approach, the status quo, because strict KPIs in the public sector don't drive excellence, they drain it. They stifle innovation and punish creativity. Data skewing, corner cutting, and workforce trapped in survival mode are the costs. The opposition pauses. Thank you.
We thank the first opposition speaker from the Judiciary of Jamaica for that fine presentation. We now move to the first segment of cross-examination. In this segment, the opposition team, the Judiciary of Jamaica, will get an opportunity to ask 3 questions of the proposition team, Team Universal Service Fund. Each of those questions are limited to 10 seconds, each response limited to 30 seconds. So let's get the segment started with the first set of questions from the Judiciary of Jamaica.
Isn't it true, proposition, that strict KPI regimes are designed for linear, quantifiable environments, but Jamaica's public sector deals with unpredictable, relational, and community-based problems?
A public sector entity has been created for to deliver on a particular mandate. So with set KPIs, it ensures that the citizens of Jamaica are receiving value for money and the employees that that organization employ is doing the work that it is mandated to do.
All right. If a nurse discharges a patient early to reduce wait times, meeting her KPI, but harming long-term care, is that success under your system?
What it is that it's about strategy. The setting of a KPI, which is looking at the whole customer service experience, doesn't define what the strategy is used within that organization. Therefore, at that hospital, whatever strategy or whatever customer service approach that they will use, that is up to where they will use creativity and innovation to be a part of it, but ensuring that the public interest, because remember, these are government entities, the public interest remains at heart.
To talk about strategy and in this system makes a concession for the proposition that is strategic. I'm sorry, my bad. Are you aware that strategic KPIs are different from strict KPI-based system?
So both are similar. Why? Because again, it clearly defines how the work that you're doing will be measured at the end of the day. So if you talk about ensuring that the wait time for a particular patient for a simple burn or whatsoever is supposed to be 5 minutes, 2 minutes or whatsoever, or however the response time is, the system there defines how exactly what you need to do there.
All right, thank you very much, the Judiciary of Jamaica, Team Opposition, for your questions. Thanks to USF for the responses. We go now to USF to hear your questions posed to the Judiciary of Jamaica.
If creativity leads to innovation but does not result in measurable outcomes, how do you justify continued investment of public funds?
We are not trying to bat for a system that is led by creativity and innovation. We are saying that creativity and innovation and KPIs should support each other. And so in a system that balances both, we are in support of continuing to support those projects because the creativity and innovation fixes and addresses issues where KPIs fail to meet, where KPIs fail to address.
So then, without KPIs to reduce backlog of court cases, how would you use employee creativity and innovation to measure the work of the judiciary?
In truth, we don't propose ever removing KPIs. What we propose is that strict KPIs will limit creativity and innovation so much so that when you limit people to numbers, nothing new or novel will come into place to change anything that strict KPIs cannot address.
So then, my opponent, are you saying then that the benefits of strict KPIs actually outweighs the employees' creativity and innovation within the public service?
No, that's not what we're saying. What we are saying is that KPIs are necessary, but they should not be applied too strictly. And that KPIs, when balanced with the cost, are good for the public sector. That is our argument, not that strict KPIs outweigh the benefits to cost specifically.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that exchange of questions and answers. Brilliantly done. First a round of applause. All right, good. So we continue our debate now with the presentation from the second speaker from Team Proposition, representing the Universal Service Fund.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, and worthy opponents, today I stand firmly in favor of the motion that strict KPIs are more valuable than creativity and innovation in the public sector. And to support the MOOT, I will advance the following arguments: that strict KPIs align employees' efforts with national priorities, provide performance measurement that reduce bias, facilitate data-driven decision-making, improve service delivery and citizen satisfaction. And altogether, these benefits outweigh the cost of a public sector driven by employee creativity and innovation. Let us begin with this fundamental truth. In the public sector, individual efforts must serve collective national interests. That is why strict KPI works. That is why strict KPIs work. This is why strict KPIs are essential. They align employee efforts with national priorities. Without clear targets, public sector risks becoming routine or scattered. That's why a comprehensive strategic planning process is crucial, starting with understanding our current situation, setting clear goals, outlining how to achieve them, assigning roles across ministries and agencies, and finally, most importantly, using KPIs to monitor progress. KPIs are the backbone of this process, turning national goals into measurable actions and holding everyone accountable with clear standards for success. Take Vision 2030 Jamaica. Under the medium-term framework for security and safety, the objective is to reduce murder rate from 59.5 persons per 100,000 in 2007 to 10 by 2030. That is strategic national target, not a vague ambition. It directs, not at this time, it directs the actions of the Ministry of National Security, the Judiciary, the Ministry of Justice, and others. And it works. In 2024, the Jamaica Constabulary Force reported the lowest murder rate in years, 40.1 per 100,000. This model isn't unique to Jamaica. In Saudi Arabia, a KPI to raise family home ownership from 47% in 2015 to 70% by 2030 drives housing, finance, and infrastructure policies, aligning actions with national goals. The bottom line, what gets measured gets done. Creativity involves trial and error, but KPIs deliver clear, measurable outcomes and real impact. Mr. Speaker, our second point is that objective performance measurement reduces bias and encourages focused innovation. Strict KPIs offer a fair, consistent way to measure performance, removing bias, favoritism, and political interference from public sector evaluation. By focusing on clear, quantifiable outcomes, they promote meritocracy and accountability. Take Singapore, where civil service performance is measured through clear indicators, with promotions and bonuses tied to results, not relationships. Similarly, Jamaica's PMAS fosters a result-driven culture by clarifying roles and linking performance to rewards. Unlike KPIs, creativity lacks consistent metrics. Ideas may start but never deliver outcomes, making it hard to assess real employee impact. Mr. Speaker, strict KPIs provide reliable data that enables evidence-based decisions, helping leaders identify trends, fix problems, and allocate resources more effectively. Unlike creativity, which can lead to arbitrary or politically driven choices, KPIs bring structure, not at this time, transparency, and public trust by showing clearly what's working and what needs attention. Jamaica's National Health Fund use of strict KPI regimes to track processing times and service levels enabled the agency to fill over 2.7 million prescriptions in 2024 and process 4.8 million claims, delivering nearly 9.1 billion in subsidies. Unlike the private sector, where inefficiency costs profit, in the public sector, it costs the nation through delays, poor service, and unmet needs. Clear KPIs are vital for improving service delivery and citizen satisfaction by exposing inefficiencies, reducing waste, and driving focused action to achieve better outcomes. Take the Jamaica's Registrar General's Department. They faced a stark reality. In some cases, children weren't being registered until 5 years after birth. That failure had real consequences. Delayed access to education, healthcare, and legal identity. But when the RGD was held to the KPI of registering 98% of births annually, they had to act. The result, bedside registration in 2007, a targeted innovation that ensured newborns were registered before leaving the hospital. This was an innovation for its own sake. It was innovation driven by the demands of a strict KPI, proof that clear targets don't stifle employee creativity, they sharpen them. In conclusion, what gets measured gets managed. And in the public sector, where accountability is non-negotiable, strict KPIs are fundamental. Creativity may help achieve targets, but it is inconsistent, unstructured, and ultimately instrumental, not essential. KPIs provide the standard, the structure, and the pressure that drive meaningful innovation, like bedside registration in Jamaica, not the other way around. A world where creativity trumps performance standards is a world without direction, without results, and without public trust. That's why we stand firmly to say that strict KPI regimes are not only necessary, but clearly more beneficial for delivering high-quality, accountable public services rather than mere creativity and innovation. The proposition pauses.
Thank you very much. Second proposition speaker there from the USF team. We now go to the second opposition speaker from the Judiciary of Jamaica opposition team to hear their speech. Hear, hear.
Think of ants. Every ant has a specific duty that it performs daily to keep the colony alive. But what happens when it rains? The system must adapt or the colony dies. That, Mr. Speaker, is the essence of creativity, innovation, and adaptation in the face of change. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, and the audience, good afternoon. This debate turns not simply on whether KPIs have value. It turns on whether strict KPI regimes, those imposed without flexibility, human insight, or contextual sensitivity, outweigh the cost to employee creativity and innovation. And our answer, and surely yours after hearing this case, is a resounding no. Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, any KPI that adapts is no longer strict, it's strategic. Arguing for such flexibility is not a defense, it's a concession. Today, I have been tasked with advancing our case with 3 arguments, grounded in facts, figures, and the Jamaican reality. That is, strict KPIs suppress innovation, they are fundamentally misaligned with the nature of public work, and finally, they dismantle the collaboration required for innovation. Mr. Speaker, innovation is what builds nations. Without it, there's no growth, no transformation, no Jamaica 2030 plan. But what strict KPI regimes do is punish deviation, even when that deviation is the birthplace of better solutions. A 2021 Gallup study found that 29% of employees in KPI-heavy systems felt encouraged to innovate, compared to a 61% in more flexible ones. That's more than double the innovation potential lost to rigidity. Take the Jamaican teacher who wants to create a culturally tailored reading program. Under strict KPIs, focused solely on test results, she's penalized for investing time in long-term change. That systematic disincentive to experiment, explore, or improve. Compare that to Singapore, where innovation, not accepted, where innovation labs gave public servants space to experiment without fear of penalty, leading to groundbreaking policies and world-class governance. Innovation, not rigidity, drove their success. In the very same way, innovation has sparked Jamaica's digital, infrastructural, and service excellence reform. Imagine what we could do with innovation labs. If Jamaica wants to reach its developmental goals, we must stop punishing the people bold enough to solve our biggest problems. Public service is not a factory production. It's relational, human-centered, and values-based. Yet strict KPI systems reduce it to numbers that ignore what actually improves citizens' lives, not accepted. Consider a nurse. Her KPI may be patient seat per hour, but what happens to the 20 minutes she spends explaining how to manage hypertension to prevent a stroke? That moment may save the government hundreds of thousands of dollars in future hospital costs, but that's not a part of performance metrics, so it doesn't count. Even the World Bank's 2020 Public Sector Performance Report warns, over-reliance on rigid performance frameworks reduces effectiveness in service-oriented agencies. That's exactly the risk Jamaica faces. losing the quality and heart of our public services to a spreadsheet, not accepted. Mr. Speaker, even the government's own call for strategic business and operational plans in 2020 cites the Public Sector Transformation and Modernization Program as prioritizing innovation and business excellence. The message is clear. KPIs without creativity and innovation are like Jamaica leaving the West Indies Federation. 1 from 10 leaves not. Mr. Speaker, innovation thrives in collaborative environments, but strict KPIs pit public servants and departments against one another by rewarding isolated performance. Instead of solving problems together, ministries retreat into silos, hoard information, and pursue individual targets over collective results. Take Jamaica Moves. A cross-ministry health initiative, by integrating local government, education, and health, it increased national physical activity by 14.5%. helping to lower future health costs by over 500 million Jamaican dollars annually. Mr. Speaker, through collaborative efforts integrating multiple ministries, TIU streamlined 40 public bodies and realized $1 billion in annual savings by reducing redundancy and consolidated shared services. Globally, the World Health Organization estimates that every $1 spent on interagency preventative health yields $7 in economic returns. A 600% return on investment made possible only by collaboration. But when public servants are told, stick to your KPI, they stop asking, how can we solve this together? In fact, a 2020 McKinsey report found collaboration dropped by 38% under strict KPI regimes. So the loss is not theoretical, Mr. Speaker, it's measurable. Every time collaboration is stifled, Jamaica loses efficiency, service quality, and economic return. Mr. Speaker, when rain falls on the ant colony, they don't panic. They close the entrance to the nest and cover their food. That is what innovation and survival demands. This debate isn't about rejecting performance, it's about rejecting rigidity. Strict KPIs stifle innovation, ignore the human core of public work, and kill collaboration, the very tool that has saved Jamaica over $1 billion and has driven national reform. Innovation labs built Singapore's success. Cross-agency work saved us millions. The evidence is clear. Creativity and innovation fuel development. Rigidity does not. Because, Mr. Speaker, 1 from 10 leaves not. When creativity and innovation are ingrained in our DNA, strict KPIs without them leave Jamaica the same. Nothing. Thank you.
This is a debate that I would strongly recommend managers and leaders of the public service watch. There's a lot to learn here from both teams. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the second segment of cross-examination. The rules apply, the rules that were established for the first segment also apply here. And so we now await the questions from the opposition team, the Judiciary of Jamaica.
If strict KPIs are truly about service improvement, how do they account for soft qualitative outcomes like trust, satisfaction, or behavioral change?
So again, my opponent, it's the KPIs are what you use to measure the delivery of the organization and its mandate. The strategies that you employ to achieve this is totally up to the employees because again, from senior leaders, from everyone there, they have the ability to use creativity and innovation to ensure that the measurements that are in place to say that what you're doing towards your target, it is meeting that. So if a trust, for whatever it is, you need to ensure that whatever your core values are, it is in. Oh no, I'm done. It's fine. It's 30 seconds, fine.
If KPIs are applied equally across agencies, how do they accommodate local context, say a rural school versus an urban school?
So again, strategy is what would define how you meet those measurements. So you know what you'll be assessed against. So if you're talking about rural schools or you're talking about a local school, it's about ensuring school attendance and school children at school eating lunch. It's about understanding your environment and putting whatever strategy that is in place to ensure that you meet that KPI.
In your model, how are public servants rewarded for long-term, team-based innovation when KPIs measure short-term individual outputs?
So the KPI is for a particular time frame, yes, but also the work plans and the dot plans that each employee would have to do once they start, it works towards achieving this outcome at the end of the day.
Teams for this first phase of cross-examination. We move on to the second phase of this cross-examination. This time we welcome the questions coming from the USF team posed to the Judiciary team.
My opponents, if public servants need freedom from measurement to be creative, should we also remove performance standards for doctors and pilots to enhance their creativity?
We're not saying they need freedom from metrics. We're saying that metrics that are strict restrict them from being creative and innovative. I need you to listen. What we're saying is that when you give them a KPI, say how many patients per hour they can see, they stop wasting your time and your money telling people how to prevent illnesses that will cost you millions in the back. So what we're saying is KPIs and creativity should work together, not by themselves, especially when it is strict.
So you argue that creativity is more valuable than hitting KPIs. Doesn't that risk encouraging a culture where outcome doesn't matter as long as people feel creative?
No, and just to repeat, that our position is that we want a balanced approach. KPIs and creativity must work hand in hand because standalone, each of them can be dangerous. And that is why we're saying the status quo works, where we use KPIs and we also use creativity and innovation. It's about finding that delicate balance between the two because, as I said in my speech, we do not operate in extremes.
So in your world where employee creativity and innovation trumps strict KPIs, how do you objectively measure employee performance and productivity?
We measure them with KPIs. Madam Second Speaker, what we're saying is not to remove KPIs. What we're saying is we don't want strict KPIs because that is what suppresses innovation and creativity, not KPIs themselves. What we want is for our employees to be able to have their metrics, know what they are to do, but be able to say, well, maybe if we did it this way, it would have been done better. Or maybe if we implement this instead, it will make the process streamlined a bit easier. That is what we're arguing today. Not that creativity is by itself or innovation by itself.
All right, thank you to both teams for an exciting and engaging period of cross-examination. Please feel free to give them a round of applause. Thank you. All right, so we're now going to pause for 1 minute to allow you to gather your thoughts, refresh yourself, breathe a little bit, and then at the end of the 1 minute, we'll All right, so we are ready again to continue our debate. This time we make way for the reply speaker from the opposition team Judiciary of Jamaica. Let us hear the verdict that they will now deliver. Hear, hear.
proposition wants to argue that there is room for innovation and creativity in a strict KPI system, but the only room that it has is in the attic, where lost and forgotten items go. The proposition has made an important concession. They have argued that targeted innovation is workable, and the opposition considers that to be a grave concession. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, worthy opponents, and the audience, good afternoon. The core clash in this debate is not about whether KPIs have value. It is about whether strict KPI regimes, rigid, high-stakes, output-obsessed systems are worth the creativity and innovation that they sacrifice in the public sector. Mr. Speaker, the answer is a resolute no. The proposition misguidedly argues that KPIs improve accountability and reduce corruption. Accountability is important, we agree, but with strict strategic KPIs over strict KPIs, this is achievable. But with strategic KPIs over strict KPIs, this is achievable. While KPIs can track outputs, strict KPI regimes often encourage box ticking over true accountability, allowing poor quality work to hide behind inflated numbers. Real anti-corruption measures require transparency, ethics, and oversight, not just a spreadsheet of targets. The proposition also argues that strict KPIs improve efficiency and drive innovation. Our teams show that when KPIs are applied without flexibility, they produce metrics without meaning. Teachers teaching to the test, nurses rushing patients, customer service officers just ticking boxes. They are asked to meet numerical targets at the expense of long-term change. The proposition also says KPIs improve service delivery. Our second speaker gave the example of the nurse whose KPIs may be patients seen per hour, while the true value of her work lies in preventative care, counseling, and compassion. None of these are captured in strict KPIs. So the service looks good on paper, but it fails in impact. The World Bank's 2020 report confirms this. Rigid framework actually reduce effectiveness in service-based sectors. The proposition did not challenge this. Even the government's strategic business and operational plans recognize that success must be measured by innovation, business excellence, not just numerical outcomes. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the idea that rigid metrics lead to progress is not only flawed, it is dangerous. Consider a customer service representative at the family court, whose daily strict KPI include time constraints of 5 minutes per customer. Apply that to the representative serving a member of the deaf community. A strict KPI regime would prevent them from adequately addressing the needs. However, a flexible system allows the agent to engage another member of the organization who is trained in Jamaican Sign Language, can utilize assistive technologies, reach out to the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities or the Jamaica Association for the Deaf, or obtain the services of an interpreter. Now, that is true service delivery, backed by innovation and creativity. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, if we were to follow strict KPIs to the letter, none of us would be here today debating, because debate preparation does not check a measurable output box. Now, let me reinforce why the opposition has won. Our case was consistent, real, and rooted in the Jamaican experience. We cited real-world examples of successful innovation: the TIU, Hard Trust NSTA, the judiciary reforms. We gave economic evidence: $1 billion saved through collaboration, $500 million in projected healthcare savings from Jamaica Moves. We provided global data. We presented evidence of the effects of collaboration, and we showed the massive economic effects of collaboration. We have shown you the real costs: suppressed innovation, demoralized servants, and unbroken collaboration. We have shown you that Jamaica thrives not under rigidity, but under a flexible structure with room to adapt. Mr. Speaker, we return to the image that began this debate. 10,000 feathers may look impressive, like metrics, charts, and output numbers, but they will never outweigh 10 boulders: creativity, morale, purpose, and integrity. So we asked the House to choose progress over performance, performance pressure, collaboration over competition, and real impact over statistical illusion. For these reasons, we urge you to reject the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech, and thanks for concluding the case of the opposition team. Now, ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves. We are about to hear the reply speaker from Team Proposition, the Universal Service Fund. Hear, hear.
My opponents, I hasten to remind you that KPIs measure the impact of the public sector's mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, judges, opposition, good afternoon. We've heard the opposition today, plenty of assertions, but very little substance. And let's be clear, in the public sector, where real lives are shaped by policy, appealing rhetoric is no substitute for evidence-based solutions. We can't afford to let loose arguments distract from what actually works. Let's go through their main arguments and examine them. First, they mentioned that unethical practices could be generated from strict KPIs, or what could be considered box-ticking culture. Employees may focus solely on hitting KPI targets. I would hasten to remind my opponents once again that that is a concern only when KPIs are poorly designed or misused. Secondly, the opposition argued that KPIs stifle creativity and innovation. That sounds persuasive at a glance. Everyone likes the idea of freedom and flexibility in the workplace, but let's be realistic. Unstructured creativity in the public sector, that's not a strategy, that's a gamble. Innovation without direction leads to disjointed pilot projects, wasted resources, and little to no scale-up. KPIs don't suppress innovation, they focus it. They help teams set clear priorities and innovate where it matters. Take PICA, Jamaica's Passport, Immigration, and Citizenship Agency. Their improved processing systems didn't emerge from vague brainstorming. They came from performance reviews tied to cleared metrics. KPIs sparked innovation, not stifled it. They also mentioned that strict KPIs reduces collaboration. Let me remind you that collaboration came because of KPIs. The Vision 2030 plan speaks to GOJ engaging in strategic collaborative to advance the growth of the nation. All created KPIs to drive change by 2030. Secondly, the opposition claims that KPIs create rigidity. This argument collapses under scrutiny. It's not structure that harms morale and rigidity, it's confusion and inconsistency. When employees don't know what success looks like, frustration builds. KPIs done right provide clarity, recognition, and developmental feedback, and they're not as rigid as the opposition suggests. Singapore's public sector uses KPIs that reward creative problem solving and collaboration. Rwanda's Imihigo performance contracts are locally driven and community focused. Jamaica's PMAS has evolved to include behavioral and developmental goals, not just raw output. Because here's the truth, what gets measured gets managed, and what isn't measured gets neglected. If we don't track what's working and what isn't, we risk falling into guesswork, not governance. It is now undeniable, based on today's debate, that the proposition has made a compelling and evidence-based case. My first speaker proved that KPIs are not inherently restrictive. They are tools that support accountability, efficiency, and transparency. In a sector funded by public trust and public funds, those are not optional, they're essential. My second speaker drove that home with clear real-world evidence. KPIs aligning public action with national goals like Vision 2030 Jamaica, improved service delivery through performance tracking, just look at RGD and PICA, fair evaluations that reduce bias seen in PMAS and Imihigo, smarter data-driven governance through tools like Jamaica's National Health Fund and Singapore's Smart Nation platform. Now, to end where we must on what good, strict KPIs actually look like, they aren't arbitrary checklists. They're smart, specific, clear objectives that leave no guesswork, measurable so progress is visible, not imagined, achievable, tied to real capacity, not wishful thinking, relevant, aligned with the mission, not a distraction from it, time-bound because public service is about deadlines, not open-ended hopes. A strict KPI regime that follows the SMART framework isn't the enemy of the public good, it's the engine of it. To clarify, this debate was never about defending bad KPI systems. It's about affirming that a strict, structured, well-designed KPI regime is not only compatible with public service values, it's essential to delivering them. Imagine the public sector as a rowing boat. In a world driven by strict KPIs, employees row in unison toward a clear, meaningful destination. But in your world, where creativity and innovation trump KPIs, each employee takes a nuanced approach, rowing in different directions. The result, the boat spins, progress stalls, and the destination fades. That's why the proposition proudly affirms this motion. Be it resolved that the benefits of strict KPI regimes outweigh the cost to employee creativity and innovation. The public deserves it. The proposition rests.
Thank you very much for that concluding speech. Reply Speaker from Team Universal Service Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been quite an enthralling and exciting debate. We are now tasked as adjudicators to go and deliberate, weighing the arguments and coming to the right decision. But before we do so, I turn over now to Madam Tamika Godmighty to take us to the close.
Thank you so much, Jermaine. What an enlightening and dynamic debate, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give these quarterfinalists another round of applause. They tackled the complex and highly relevant MOOT, be it resolved that the benefits of strict KPI regimes in the public sector outweigh the costs to employee creativity and innovation. The Universal Service Fund versus Judiciary of Jamaica. Are you Team KPI? Or let creativity run free? Let us know. Share your views on our social media pages. The judges will now take a short break to deliberate, and they will come back with the results of the match as well as the best speaker. Please stay tuned.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We're now at the results segment of this debate. And this debate, to just remind you, this debate centered on the question, the MOOT, as to whether or not strict KPI regimes, whether or not the harms that are inflicted on the creativity and innovation of workers in the public service, whether or not it's worthwhile, given the gains that are to be had. Of course, contesting this MOOT, we had two teams. On team proposition, we had the Universal Service Fund, and on opposition, we had the members of the Judiciary of Jamaica. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the argumentation we felt reflected, certainly from the proposition team, the benefits that are to be had from KPI and this implementation of strict KPI regime. Of course, that term was used interchangeably with KPIs and the enforcement of KPIs, broadly speaking. And so they tell us that, for example, we get benefits like holding public servants more strictly adherent to the KPIs, such that if it is that we imagine the KPIs are missed, then there will be consequences. We get to weed out from the public service less than competent workers, and we get to ensure that there's a public service that is efficient and effective at administering public affairs. Speaking of public affairs, team proposition tells us that the public service must necessarily be risk averse. Not the kind of laboratory for experimentation and innovation that oftentimes lead to failures, but rather it must be a space where the parameters for operation are strictly established and there cannot be much deviation from those parameters. Hence, strict KPI regimes is what they're supporting. And they say to us that in a world where creativity and innovation is permitted to flow unencumbered or with limited encumbrances, ultimately it's going to be a world where public resources are harmed and the detriment are severe. And of course, we heard about the NASA situation and stock exchange and so forth. All, generally speaking, examples from overseas. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later. Now, Team Judiciary thought that this debate really necessitated a clear understanding of a key term in the MOOT. That term, strict KPI regimes. And they characterize strict KPI regimes as being KPIs which are mandated. You must be governed by them. And there's not much flexibility with respect to keeping a job, for example, should you not meet those KPIs. And so what we imagined in their world, in the world of strict KPIs rather, is that you don't meet your KPI, you go to your supervisor, you have a conversation, and the reasons, the justifications for you not meeting the KPIs or the deviations from those clear KPIs are not accepted as reasons for you not meeting the KPIs. And of course, then consequences will flow. We got that kind of characterization as well from team proposition, the first speaker's delineation as to the benefits, one of the benefits being that people are kept in line in terms of adhering to those KPIs. So in the net result, in terms of that characterization of what strict KPIs look like and the effects of them, we are led to accept the interpretation of team opposition. Now, having accepted this, the second thing that weighs on our minds is whether or not the arrangement, the characterization of team proposition, which is to say that the public service must be risk averse, must be disinclined to experiment and innovation and so forth, because it's dealing with the public purse and the public resources and so forth. Does this hold relative to the characterization coming to us from opposition that says oftentimes the public service has to be nimble, has to be agile, has to be able to respond in a fairly quick and efficient fashion to the concerns and the demands placed on it? We felt that that characterization from team opposition may be truer in more instances than not. And we felt that for example, the example that they brought coming out of COVID-19 and how it is that the government and the Jamaican state was able to pivot quickly and demonstrate agility in terms of responding to that calamity and that crisis was, in fact, quite useful in proving that point. That said, we felt that that example was unusual and reflects a sort of a deviation from the norm. We don't have pandemics very often. We don't have crises of that severity very often. And so the question of agility and nimbleness, we felt needed to have been proven a little bit more as being the norm, generally speaking, more so than the norm only in instances or generally in instances of calamities and catastrophe and significant crisis. So again, our position would have been helpful had you proven that more to say, you know, in a time like this, for example, when the nation isn't faced with a crisis, nimbleness and agility is required. That said, we felt that the question, the imperative for creativity and innovation was proven largely, as is their responsibility, by team opposition. We got some tremendous benefits that seemingly created a kind of a binary kind of a discussion in this debate. How is it a binary? We get tremendous harms coming about from creativity and innovation when allowed to flow freely, and we get some benefits that are to be had when innovation and creativity is unleashed in the public service. We felt that we needed to get a bit more weighing of either worlds by either team. So opposition needed to have explained to us why is it, for example, the examples and the instances where creativity and innovation go awry, why it is that is not necessarily, generally speaking, the norm, and that we get more benefits from cases where we get a flourishing and unleashing of creativity and innovation. So a bit more engagement by both sides, trying to wrestle the debate in their favor would have been a little bit more helpful. Still speaking on creativity and innovation, we felt that the examples, and this now pivots to the concern that I listed at the very beginning, or a point that I listed at the beginning, the examples coming from overseas, the NASA and so forth. We felt that there are many examples in the Jamaican public service. The Jamaican public service is big and complex, and certainly there are lots of examples that are here. And so it might have been helpful to situate your examples of creativity and innovation going awry within Jamaican context, within the Jamaican examples. That said, we also felt that a lot of those examples does not prove emphatically that the existence of KPIs would not permit those kinds of deviations that are creative in nature. I think we felt that the insistence consistently by team opposition, which is that we're talking about the strict, inflexible adherence to KPIs and a regime that follows that kind of arrangement, is what the debate is about. And we felt that at times team proposition rather, sort of did not engage with that very specific and important characterization that was detailed in the MOOT. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it was a high-scoring match, 281 points. You think that's a winning team score, right? Oh, no. The winner of this match landed on 294 points. High-scoring match. Excellent engagement between the two teams. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in the match between the two Titanic teams, Proposition's Universal Service Fund, opposition, the Judiciary of Jamaica, the winner, the team ending on 294 points, and thus advancing to the semi-final round of the public sector debate competition for this year is Team Judiciary of Jamaica. Indeed, congratulations to the Judiciary of Jamaica, and very well tried, Universal Service Fund. Now I'll let you into a little bit of the operations in the oral adjudication, in the deliberation. They say you mustn't tell tales out of school, but we're not in school. So, during the deliberation, there was at least one judge who felt that one debater was significantly the best debater, but that judge was overruled by two others who felt that another debater was the best debater. So the minority judge felt that the first debater on team opposition was the best debater, but unfortunately he doesn't get that beautiful gift basket that Tamika will shortly present. The winner of the Best Debater Award is, from the winning team, the second speaker. So again, congratulations on getting that coveted award. And I feel like at the quarterfinals round through to the very end, that designation as being the best debater means a lot more, right? It's far more tangible, and I understand it's a weighty award because you get a significant reward. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in and for sharing this space with us. We're going to, in a short while from now, move on to the fourth and final match in this quarterfinal round of the public sector debate competition. You will not want to miss this. Stay tuned.